What's going on, everybody? Today, we have to address this Star Wars fatigue. Do you believe that Star Wars is going through a fatigue from the fan base? Now, there's been a lot of chatter about this, mainly because of Solo losing so much money at the box office, but Mark Hamill himself, Luke Skywalker, believes in Star Wars fatigue. Now, this is what the basis is really around here. It goes on to say here that during the last few minutes of his Awards Chatter podcast with The Hollywood Reporter, which posted on Tuesday, Hamill responded to speculations that audiences are tired of new titles from the galaxy far, far away. Given the box office underperformance of Solo, which grossed almost $393 million worldwide against a budget of at least $250 million and a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign. This is what Mark Hamill had to say. Quote, "Yes," Hamill said, "I'm not going to tell them how to run their business, but is there a possibility of Star Wars fatigue? Yeah, I think there is. I've experienced it to a certain degree, but they never listen to my ideas anyway, so who needs them?" I mean, Mark Hamill has really been on the offensive with Disney Star Wars anyway. It's safe to say he really doesn't care about the sequel trilogy very much, but that's a different story, and for now, I digress. But Star Wars fatigue with Solo, I'm not buying that. Now, granted, almost nobody went to see Solo, but it was coming off the heels of the horrible The Last Jedi. And Star Wars fans are super passionate about Star Wars. They really, really are. The Last Jedi fractured the fan base. Then 6 months later, or whatever it is, 5 months later, Solo comes out. It was a movie that nobody really wanted to see. And it's about a character in Han Solo who people can only imagine being played by Harrison Ford. Now, no offense to Alden Ehrenreich, he never stood a chance in this role. He just didn't. Harrison Ford is one of the great actors of all time. And you're going to replace him with somebody nobody knows about. And then in the movie sucked to me. That's just me. I know there's people out there that liked it, but oh well. But coming off The Last Jedi did no favors whatsoever to Solo, a Star Wars story. Now, is there franchise fatigue with Star Wars? In the big picture, no. I think that is so phony. It's complete fiction. Fans will show up to Star Wars movies, but there's a caveat to that. Lucasfilm, Disney, you have to make good Star Wars movies. I'm gonna say that again. You need to make good Star Wars movies. Then the fans will show up to watch the movies. Make no mistake, look at the MCU. This will completely bury the Star Wars franchise fatigue myth. The MCU, since 2008, 11 years ago, they have made 22 MCU movies. Nobody ever complained about franchise fatigue with the MCU. This year alone, there's going to be 3 MCU movies coming out relatively close together. Captain Marvel came out last month. Avengers Endgame is coming out this month. And Spider-Man Far From Home comes out, I believe, in June or July. Nobody is complaining about franchise fatigue. So the thing is, Lucasfilm, they're not even putting out good movies. They're putting out trash movies. That's the reason why fans will not show up. Now, granted that Solo, a Star Wars story, was a spin-off, it wasn't a saga film. People are going to show up for Star Wars Episode 9, but not in the numbers of The Force Awakens. I don't even think The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi did so much damage to the fan base. I mean, think of it. The history of Star Wars between 1977 and 2005, there was a grand total of 6 Star Wars movies total. And they came out in trilogies, each one 3 years apart. There's no franchise fatigue. None whatsoever. I mean, if you put out one movie a year, there's no franchise fatigue. You have to put out good movies. Look at Game of Thrones as another example. They've been putting out Game of Thrones on a yearly basis every year, except for last year. Nobody has been complaining about Game of Thrones franchise fatigue. You know why? Because Game of Thrones is great. And we have to wait 2 years for this season of Game of Thrones. There is no franchise fatigue. Star Wars really hasn't been putting out a lot of movies. They put out The Force Awakens, and a year later, they came out with Rogue One. And then a year later, they came out with Star Wars The Last Jedi. And then 6 months later, they came out with Solo: A Star Wars Story. How can you be fatigued with a franchise that only puts out a movie really like once a year? You cannot get fatigue on a franchise like that. You just can't. If so, the MCU would be dead right now. I mean, 22 movies, that is a lot of movies. It's going to be 23 when Spider-Man comes out. I mean, they have really gone hard in 2019 in the MCU. They're pulling out all of the punches. So I don't know what Mark Hamill is smoking. I really just don't get it. I mean, even if you add in the non-movie stuff, the only thing they came out with was Star Wars Rebels. That was it. And that was on a yearly basis as well. So franchise fatigue is a complete myth. Franchise fatigue is so fake. It's faker than Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner's boobs. That's how fake it is. Franchise fatigue with Star Wars does not exist. If you gave us 3 Star Wars movies a year and they were good, I'm going to line up to see every single one of them. Every single one of them. If George Lucas had came out when he was making, Star Wars back in the 1970s, 1980s, and let's say after Jedi in '83, he said, you know what? I'm going to start making all of these other Star Wars movies. We're going to get 3 Star Wars movies a year. Nobody would have complained. If they were all good, people would have kept coming and coming and coming. There is no franchise fatigue also because George Lucas was selling toys like crazy. He was the master of selling toys. The problem is now, Disney, Lucasfilm, they can't sell toys because the product is bad. Think of it. You tried to promote Admiral Holdo as a strong female character, Rose Tico, and Rey. 3 characters that most Star Wars fans do not like. That's one of the reasons why people aren't showing up. And you killed off Han Solo. You made Luke a bum. And you're going to blame franchise fatigue? And I don't think Mark Hamill actually believes this. I really, really don't think that Mark Hamill believes Star Wars is going through franchise fatigue. And when he said that that he kind of went through it, he experienced it, I don't know exactly what he means by he himself going through Star Wars franchise fatigue. Maybe he's just tired of getting the short end of the stick in the sequel trilogy. Maybe he's just fatigued of that. That's the only thing I can think of. Because before the sequel trilogy, Mark Hamill hasn't been in a Star Wars movie since 1983. So, franchise fatigue? No. Don't believe it. People were actually still excited to go see Star Wars after The Force Awakens. Rogue One was a hit. People showed up for that. and people showed up for The Last Jedi, really like the first week, and they saw how bad the movie was and they stopped going. And that was pretty much the end of Star Wars as we know it now. So guys, what do you think of this? Do you believe in franchise fatigue? It's phony baloney to me, but maybe you believe in it. But let me know what you think about all this in the comments. If you're new here to the channel, please hit subscribe to catch future videos from me, and we will catch you on the next video. John Matrixx, out.